here today with Edward Faulkner, co-founder and CTO of BraveLeaf. Edward, thank you so much for being here.
No problem, always a pleasure.
Great. I'm very interested in hearing about your perspective on technology in healthcare. Specifically, I would love to talk about GIGO, or garbage in and garbage out, and its relation to analytics.
Sure, absolutely. So, the big promise of putting technology into software is that we're going to get all this great data, and this data is going to let us deliver better care and run better businesses. And that promise is real. There's real benefits there. But the most difficult step is the very first step, which is getting that right data captured right at the point of care. And so much of the difficulties in getting a medical system deployed is that some of the lowest level people in the organization, the people at the very front lines of care, are the ones who have to be able to use it day in, day out correctly, quickly, while they're focused on the actual care for the patient. It's one of the most challenging environments for software usability, making sure that people can be focused on the real human being that they're caring for, and just have the software doing the right thing alongside them as a byproduct, and not sucking in their attention, not sucking in too much of their time. So that's a huge challenge, and it's the most critical step. Once you've gotten over that hurdle, then you get to have that whole benefit of the analytics, the data, the ability to prove to others the quality of care you're giving, the ability to improve that care.
That's great. That's great information. Tell me a little bit about technical debt and cost.
Sure. So, well, I'll take on technical debt first.
Okay, great.
It's a term used in the software industry really to describe what happens when, as a software company grows and their technology grows, they invest in what they already have, and every day you add a little bit more to your product, and a user will ask for a feature, you're going to add that feature, and every individual step along the way looks like a good idea, right? But over time, you accumulate so much stuff, so many little buttons, and even behind the scenes things that only the people writing the software see, little warts, little problems that keep getting patched over and never really innovated to the next generation. And so it's analogous to borrowing money, right? You're borrowing against the future to solve a problem today. And just like normal debt, you do that well. You can do it to get your product out in front of a user faster, make them happy, give them what they needed. But it's important that you manage that and you go back and you make sure you're truly investing in the technology for the long term. And what you'll see in organizations that don't worry about this problem is you'll see them stagnate over time. And you'll wonder why their technology is no longer improving like it used to. And that's really what you're seeing. It's one of the things that from the outside looking in to a technology, it's not obvious to you why some organizations go so much faster than others.
Right.
And that's such a critical thing for this point in time, because even if you found the perfect product for your organization today and you bought it, it's not going to be the perfect product 12 months from now, and it's certainly not going to be the perfect product 5 years from now, because our whole healthcare system is evolving, and the regs are going to change, and your population is going to change, and your partners, whether that be your sources of referrals, your pharmacies, your healthcare, your doctors, everybody's evolving their models. So only constant is change, and your software is going to have to change with it because it's so integral to your environment. So a big piece of choosing a system is finding a system where you have a credible partner who's going to be there with you, evolving with you. And so a key question to ask is, this software system I'm thinking about deploying, does it look like it looked 5 years ago still? Does it still do the same things? Right? Because that's a telltale sign that there's not an investment in the core technology. They're not leaping forward to new generations. And it's a real risk for organizations.
And so one of my sayings, which probably doesn't apply here then, is sometimes expediency, I will say expediency trumps perfection, but really from this perspective, that's not the case, because if you want to get something out in a software program and you are going to use a wart to get it done,
sure,
you're going to over time have a problem for the overall organization.
Right, and it's a balancing act, always. There's always a balance between the short-term and the long-term goals. And so the real challenge is having a trusted partner who is going to be there for the long run, evolving with you, and keeping that rate of innovation up, making sure that as the regs change, they're adapting with you, that what you're asking for is actually getting out to their plan and getting implemented and getting delivered to you. And this leads into one of our other topics, which would be the difference between a product that you would just buy and have in your facility versus a cloud-hosted product.
Oh, yes, and let's talk a little bit about that. There are many nursing facilities and healthcare organizations that have big mainframes and rooms filled with expensive equipment. Mm-hmm. But with the advent of the cloud-based software, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So obviously, cloud-based software it's revolutionizing a lot of stuff, especially on the consumer side. And it's obviously taking a root in healthcare too. The huge benefits to it are that you're letting the experts deal with all that stuff, all the running of the servers, the backing up of the data, the redundant power supplies, the redundant network supplies. There's an awful lot of pieces to that, right? And technology companies spend an awful lot of time and money on those topics. They've got real experts working on those problems. It's not the kind of stuff you want to be doing in-house if your own expertise is not technology, if your expertise is healthcare. So that's obviously a huge win to be able to push that work off onto the experts. Now, one of the traditional downsides of the cloud-hosted environment is that now you're dependent on everything coming through that internet pipe. And so some older school web-based systems you might use they may feel slower if that pipe gets slow. Everything's going through your internet connection. You also may find that the backhoe digs up that connection outside your building and it's down, and now nobody can do anything, and there's no access to your data. That would be terrible. So those are the traditional risks with the cloud-based system, but now the newest generation actually gives you the benefits of the best of both worlds. It would be cloud-based software where every device, whether that's an iPad, whether that's a laptop, whether it's a smartphone, is actually keeping its own copy of all the data it has. It's a fully independent system that has its own records and keeps functioning even when your network is down, and everything is extremely fast because you already have the data locally, but that it's seamlessly synchronizing with all the other devices. So that's the real cutting edge of software architecture for healthcare. We think it's a real sweet spot. And the other benefit, obviously, to this cloud-based stuff is that the software is constantly evolving. Right? You don't buy one version and you're stuck on it.
Yep.
And maybe the vendor comes back around in 5 years to ask you for a giant pile of more money to get to the next version. We think that cycle is bad for the customer and bad for the vendor. They're incentivized all the wrong ways. Because of the constant need of change, everything's always in flux. You need somebody who's going to be constantly improving in little ways so that you can evolve over time and not have giant, complicated projects to change. It also means that the vendor is incentivized to take good care of you all along as an ongoing relationship, and that it's not just a one-time sales deal where they sell you something up front and then don't really worry about you nearly so much until it's time to come around and try to sell you another version. So we think a software as a service model is better for both sides.
Absolutely. I think it's great for the consumer and it's great for the organization. We
see opportunities there because long-term care didn't get sucked into the earlier generations of technology. A lot of them are paper-driven still.
That's right.
So they have a real opportunity to leapfrog. And an analogy to this that you might have heard about is that there are rural villages in Africa that never had a phone line, but everybody's got cell phones now. They've jumped completely over that technology because it was just cheaper and better. You didn't have to build all the infrastructure out. You just jumped straight to cell phone towers. And we're seeing an analogous thing in long-term care because they don't have, some organizations do, but for the vast majority don't have a lot of legacy systems.
No.
They're a kind of clean slate, and they could jump straight to an iPad, tablet, mobile world.
That's great. That's great information. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We appreciate
Bye-bye.
it. Thank you.